Welcome to the Line Movement MMA betting show. I'm Daniel Levy from Best Fight Picks and Half the Battle, joined now by Dan Tom of MMA Junkie and the Protect Your Neck podcast. Today we're going to be talking UFC 254 because the big fight is finally going down. Khabib Nurmagomedov puts his undefeated record on the line against Justin the Highlight Gaethje. And before we catch up with my co-host Dan Tom, got to let all our Canadian listeners know to go to blitzbet.eu. Dan Tom, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm ready for this card. It's a big one. It's a fun one. And I would like to think we have something fun in store for our loyal listeners who've been following the content over at linemovement.com.
We absolutely do, because we got a special guest today, and joining us now is Coach at Xtreme Couture. This man has worked with fighters such as Dan Ige and Francis Ngannou. I'm talking about Coach Eric Nicksick. Coach, welcome to Half the Battle.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on, man.
The pleasure's all ours. So, gentlemen, let's not waste any more time. Let's get right down to business, because this main event between the 28-0 Khabib Nurmagomedov taking on the 22-2 Justin the Highlight Gaethje. It's not often you see records like this in MMA. I mean, when you talk about 28-0, you think about boxers. I mean, Floyd Mayweather, the one and only, retired 50-0, and that's unheard of. And now we're talking about a different combat sport altogether in MMA. And I always say it every single time: no one is exempt from that first L. If you do this long enough, you will take that first defeat as well. Now, Khabib's been saying he wants to ride this out until he gets to 30-0. The question is, Dan Tom, is Justin Gaethje going to let him do that? Because you know for a fact that Khabib's coming here to win.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a real interesting one. It's tough because it's like I totally get the odds for people saying it's disrespectful of Gaethje. We've seen this before, folks. We've seen undefeated fighters like Khamzat Chimaev, who hasn't done nearly as much as a Khabib Nurmagomedov, draw those types of odds. Now, Khamzat's not fighting in the Shark Tank that's lightweight or fighting sharks like Justin Gaethje, granted. But I don't think it's a disrespectful line. That being said, I don't doubt Justin Gaethje or anybody or hate anybody saying that he could win this. You're getting some decent value if you think so. And I think that he's live, man. Not just that first layer defense, but it's that counterpunching he showed against my guy, Tony Ferguson, who I thought was the uncrowned king. But, we saw what he did there. Obviously, it's a complete different styles match. We know Justin doesn't like to wrestle because he admits himself that it gets him tired. So for that reason, by his own admission, I think that the basic dynamic, I'll see if you guys agree with me, is that the later this goes, if Khabib can survive those counterpunching, he could survive the power, that perhaps wrestling, even if he's failing early, may pay off in the big picture. However, I feel like those first two rounds are going to be nothing short of hell against Justin Gaethje. I'm going to be tipping my hand here and leaning toward not the latter, actually the former. I do think I'm going to side with the favorite here. Perhaps it's because I've lost privilege against picking against Khabib. Maybe we'll talk about that here in a second. But as far as the basic dynamic goes, you guys tell me if I'm crazy.
Well, this is going to be fun, man, because today we got the bettor's perspective from me. We got the analyst perspective from Dan Tom. And for the first time, we got the coach's perspective from Eric Nicksick. So, Eric, I mean, look, let's talk about the betting line for a second, because on Khabib's last two fights, against Poirier and against Conor McGregor, look, he was minus 150 to minus 160 against Conor. He was minus 200 or so against Poirier. Now we're looking at minus 330. Now, is this justified? Is this recency bias? Or do you indeed think that he's got a big stylistic advantage over Gaethje compared to the rest?
No, I think the line should be a lot closer than what it's given. I think Justin is a live dog in this, and I think he has a lot of the tools and attributes to be able to go off and pull this upset. But again, it's Khabib. It's a guy that, I relate it to like a Roger Clemens fastball, man. He gets on the mound and he tells you it's coming, and you just got to be able to hit the thing, So I think, like what Dan said, the first two rounds are going to be very, very telling on what the game plan and what these guys are going to try to do to one another. So rounds 1 and 2, I think, are going to kind of let you know on where things are going to lean.
Now, I got to know y'all's opinion on this, because obviously we know that one of the biggest weapons for Justin Gaethje is the leg kicks. And it's not just any kind of leg kick. I mean, these are the calf kicks, and only takes a few to immobilize your opponent. Now, traditionally speaking, it's not recommended that you kick against a wrestler, because, that's going to leave you open to that takedown. But that being said, man, if Gaethje can just get off on 4 or 5 of them right off the bat, avoid that first takedown, do you think that's going to stop the explosiveness of the shot, Dan Tom?
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? Whether you're talking about calf or leg, obviously, Gaethje's always traditionally been more of a thigh guy, whether he's doing that collar tie up from the clinch or he's throwing them at range. And that was something that you generally, from a forensic standpoint, when I break down fights, okay, this guy likes leg kicks. He's facing a wrestler. How many times does the wrestler get his takedowns off of caught kicks as opposed to shots, right? Now, Khabib doesn't actually counter leg kicks a lot. Neither does Justin with punches, by the way, for that matter. But what Khabib does when he faces good kickers, which I suspect we might see, and if you're a Khabib supporter, you better hope you see on Saturday morning, which is that pressure game plan against Barbosa, right? He used that pressuring style. I think it fits who Khabib is as a person. He's an aggressive fighter. It fits his wrestling from a stylistic standpoint. And you look at his camp, the one criticism you could say at AKA is they produced a similar type of fighter, wrestlers who can kickbox and pressure and come forward. Maybe they're not the best at training guys to fight off their back foot. I'm not here to throw those things against guys who have a bunch of championships on their wall, but I will say there is a lot of credit to, or a point to the fact that all the fighters from all the weight classes, from all the eras that came from AKA, they do their best when they're pressuring forward like that. And that's why we saw the best striking against one of the best strikers in that division, Edson Barbosa, who I know is now a 45er. But the point being, and again, that fight was a while ago. Edson obviously different than Gaethje. MMA math not applicable. Gaethje wiped out Edson. I know all these things, guys. I'm just saying, as far as predicting what Khabib could do or what arguably he should do, is replicate that Barbosa fight and pressure forward. I think that's how he counters the kicks more than your traditional catches. I don't think he's going to try to, nor do I think he can. I think Justin Gaethje's explosion, whether it's his kicks or his punches, that's where he's improved upon the most. That's going to be difficult to deal with.
Now, Eric, if you're coaching someone to fight the great Khabib and one of their biggest weapons are the leg kicks, how do you go about disguising it so he doesn't end up on his back every single time he throws one?
Well, a couple things you can do is you want to get off to the lead hand side. You want to try to circle off to the lead hand side to kind of make that calf kick a little bit more available and get to that almost like aim for the hamstring. But if you're right in front of a guy, of course, if you drop a leg kick in, then yeah, he's able to kind of crowd that distance and look to take that takedown. But, we always teach our guys to try to get around that lead hand side, get around the corner a little bit to really, because you want to try to expose that calf and that hamstring. And then, yeah, I mean, as far as Justin goes, the other thing too he does really well, man, is he slips punches and drops leg kicks in. So he'll slip a right hand, he'll slip off and drop that kick, and which makes you vulnerable because you're heavy on that front foot. We saw that happen with Tony. We do that technique quite a bit. Guys will throw the right cross, they'll be heavy on their front foot. You slip off and you really drop that leg kick in. So I wouldn't shy away from the throwing that kick. I mean, is one of Justin's best attributes. So I think he's going to need to try to implement that, especially in a 5-round fight against a guy like Khabib. The legs and the body work are going to be very important for Justin in this fight.
It's like I've gone on these levels where like I've counted him out for his stand-up, which is why I've picked southpaw strikers against him. Some of those, they showed a path you could argue with, perhaps glimpses of McGregor, although he was too tired to capitalize, or Michael Johnson. But, I was dead wrong with the Dustin Poirier pick, right? So it's a really treacherous ground to assume that. I will say, even though I believe Khabib is still a bit janky on the feet, I'm going to set up Eric Nicksick to hopefully get a comment of him on something here. But I will say that Khabib's kicking actually really surprised me, and going back to look at it for the umpteenth time now, for whatever reason, this guy actually kicks really well and really hard when he wants to. And that's kind of part of the reason too why I said his striking and success is probably more dependent on going forward. He looks much better defensively and offensively, where when he's going back, he kind of looks kind of out of sorts a bit. And it's funny because I've been seeing Justin Gaethje throw these two combos, and I see them both possibly having success. And I saw Ankalaev throw them, and he kind of only skinned Khabib, right? But I do wonder what a Gaethje with his more style and waiting and kind of drawing him in more than chasing will do, which is, and Eric, you know this, I've seen all your guys from Ige, by the way, speaking of Edson Barbosa, using some really nice shifting combos. But Gaethje will do the overhand. I feel like in MMA, I've been waiting for guys to roll under their crosses for years. Now, all of a sudden, not only are guys doing it, but they're stepping through and attaching that left overhand left hook. You know exactly what I'm talking about, Eric. Mm-hmm. Gaethje does that really well. He did it a lot in the Ferguson fight. And with the success southpaws have had, or even orthodox fighters like Ankalaev throwing that combo, I think that is definitely one of the combos to watch out for. as well as, speaking of things Al Iaquinta did well, I love that, Gaethje, his left hook is definitely is more underrated, and I dare say more dangerous punch. I love it because he does things that he throws away the right hand and then throws it, which is beautiful. However, when he does lead with that right hand, he does it off of that inside parry. And I feel like Khabib's confidence in his jab and the way he brings it low, he's just asking for that shot. We saw Al Iaquinta hit it with him. Granted, it wasn't until the fourth round. I don't know how much stung Al had at that point. But I do wonder what Gaethje, who has those on like a Korean zombie hair trigger, he'll throw them hard early. I think those are kind of the two shots for me where I feel like Khabib's going to be most culpable.
Yeah, that combo you're talking about, or that technique that we call the brow in the Dwayne Ludwig system.
Nice.
Obviously, TJ Dillashaw knocked out Hendon Brow with it, hence why we call it the brow. What we do is we set it up off of our right cross, and what you do is after your right cross, you step lead foot, your rear foot to lead foot, basically, and it turns into a left overhand. But what you're doing is you're calculating the guy to throw his check hook and baiting the fact that he's probably got his right hand down, right? And we see that in a lot of flaws in technique when guys throw their check hook, their right hand's in their pocket. So we call that a brow, and we use that quite a bit. I have many different setups that we have that we do off of it, but you're absolutely right, Dan. It's kind of a sneaky technique we've been working on quite a bit. You can go back and look at Dan Hooker when he knocked out James Vick. It was the exact same combination. He feinted a right cross, stepped under, rolled with that left overhand, and that's what he ultimately knocked him out with. So there's some sneaky things you can do from that. And, I think those combinations that especially with that lineage of Trevor Whitman and Dwayne, you can definitely see that stuff coming to light probably on Saturday.
Max Holloway is really good at that stuff too. Now, you brought up Hendon Brow, and I'm really glad that you did, because I was actually going to reference, in terms of the narrative, the storyline, the whole bit, that when you talk about the long reigning champion, they often lose when you least expect it. I mean, if you would have told me that, TJ Dillashaw was going to beat Hendon Brow at the time, I would have laughed in your face. And I know now that seems like a big joke, because now TJ Dillashaw is regarded in such a higher light than Hendon. But at the time, Hendon was 32-1. Hendon was untouchable. When you talk about Weidman versus Anderson Silva, you could have told me 100 different ways how Weidman was going to win that fight. I would have patted you on the back and told you to go on your way. You know what I mean? You look at a fight between Holly Holm and Ronda Rousey. You could have told me she was going to go out there outbox Ronda Rousey. I would have said, yeah, right. And she goes out there and head kicks her. So it usually happens when you least expect it.
I love the detail we're getting from the coach here with the striking. It's bringing a whole new dynamic. But I think, like with any Khabib fight, we really got to focus on the wrestling here. And I feel like the analysis has been kind of out of the bag. I remember saying to people, thought I was knocking Khabib before the McGregor fight. And even though I was citing opinions of guys who actually knew what they're talking about, who actually wrestle in that division, like a Kevin Lee, but Khabib is not the best wrestler in the open. Now we're seeing everybody, hearing everybody parrot that ahead of this fight. I think we all kind of know that Khabib's going to not need to, but he's going to have his best chances for success if he's able to get Gaethje to the fence. Now the striking does play as far as footwork goes, because I would argue that Ferguson is a more voracious forward mover than anybody in the division, much less Khabib. Khabib will go backwards. That's really bad for him in this fight, which is why he needs to move forward. But as far as Gaethje's defense go, I totally get where he's coming from. I don't doubt him in his pressure versus pressure approach. I understand what he means, and he's got a strong first layer, man. It feels like he almost will headbutt guys. He'll go hips to head. He'll slam down to the ground with that sprawl with whatever's available, and meet you, head on. But I do worry when you go back and you look at those fights against Luis Firmino. I know they were a while ago in the WSOF. I know Justin's gotten better, but for a guy that doesn't use wrestling offensively, he just uses it defensively. And the sample size would argue his improvements have been in the striking. His wrestling is probably a lot better than his even critics are giving him credit for sure. But I don't know if it's made some crazy jump. There's no proof of that jump being made. So when I see the very few times in his career where he's fought durable grapplers, obviously Khabib, Firmino, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, different stylings. But we saw Firmino, who even at that time was well into his mid to late 30s. Whatever things that's helping his athleticism aside, he's not the most athletic guy in the world compared to the speed or strength of a Khabib. And he was able to, stick to Justin Gaethje pretty well once he got past that first layer. So I think that, I know I'm not hanging my hat on a 4-year-old sample size, but that in principle is what has me worried and ultimately leaning toward Khabib to survive the storm. Hey, if he doesn't, I wouldn't be surprised. I want to pick Gaethje here. I feel like I've lost my ability to pick against Khabib, so perhaps that's part of the reason, folks. But analysis-wise, I do think that there's going to be some trouble, even if Khabib's failing. So long as he's pushing his game, he's winning, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you talk about a guy like Justin Gaethje, this is a D1 All-American from Arizona State. However, that being said, if we want to talk about this Tony Ferguson fight, and it was unbelievable. To go to the 5th round with a guy like Tony Ferguson, he's the boogeyman. He's known for drowning all his opponents, and it was Justin Gaethje that was doing the drowning, and I would never discredit a performance like that. However, Dan Tom, we got to point out a fact. 0 takedowns were attempted in that fight, Dan Tom. It's a completely different style of conditioning when you're talking about wrestling than in a striking match. You know that damn well. You can go into Muay Thai class right now, spar 3 rounds, but you start adding some takedowns into the mix, it's a completely different ballgame. So you mentioned that first layer of defense, and I'm really glad you did, because I do think that Justin Gaethje is going to come out here and stuff the initial takedowns. It's just that what's going to happen when this hits deep waters, because one thing about Khabib Nurmagomedov is, you see with certain guys, if that first takedown doesn't work, they start getting discouraged, they start backing up, they start wilting. Khabib Nurmagomedov is so mentally strong that you can stuff the first 5 takedowns, but are you going to stuff the 6th, 7th, and 8th, Eric?
Well, I think that kind of goes back to the connection of what you talked about earlier, where you see Khabib striking and why it has a lot of validity. And it's 2 words, it's level change, right? He blends his striking so well within his level change. Now, why is that important? If you can blend your striking with your level change, it shows that you're not being a la carte. You're not just all of a sudden I'm striking and then now all of a sudden, now I'm going to wrestle. When you show that level change, you're going to start looking for where those hands start to drop and the holes in the defense with the guys. Now, that kind of circles back to what you're talking about with Justin. He's going to have to implement frames. He's not going to want to dig underhooks initially. You want to frame off first. That's going to be your first line of defense. You don't want to get chest to chest with a guy like Khabib. And Coach Follis used to always talk about that with us when he would stick his hand out and shake our hand. He goes, well, why'd you shake my hand? Because that's kind of what you naturally tend to do. Well, it's almost the same thing in wrestling, where you automatically look to dig an underhook. You want to frame first and you want to redirect. That's going to be very important for him. But now when you redirect, the other key to that is you don't want to strike right away, because you got to understand a reshot is coming right after that redirect. So you want to redirect and disengage and get your distance back before you strike off of anything. So I think that little cat and mouse game in between is going to be very, very important. On top of that, what Khabib does brilliantly, better than anybody, is he always ties up a leg or ties up an arm the moment you hit the ground. And why is that important? You can't build a base. So when you get taken down right away, and you see a lot of guys in especially in the heavyweight division, their natural defense is to give their back up and build up a big base and try to peel guys off. What Khabib does is he always isolates an ankle, always ties up a leg. He's always in half guard. He's always in split and pin. He's always finding the cradle. He always has a leg implemented for you to build up that base, is why it's so difficult to get the guy off of you. And again, to your point was how tired it makes you later on in those rounds is getting this guy off of you, getting him to peel a leg off, get him to peel an arm off, working back up to the feet, and then guess what? He's right back in on your legs again. And that's where you're like, shit, what do I do here? So the level changes in the striking are going to be very important. I think that's what makes him successful. And then, of course, the way you're going to dictate that wrestling game is you got to keep them off your chest first. You have to start, in front of the 8 ball rather than behind.
So, gentlemen, it's prediction time. I know we can sit here for the next hour and keep breaking this down from a technical standpoint. This has been amazing. So, who y'all got, Dan Tom? Is it going to be and still or and new?
Well, I've been kind of tipping my hand, and yeah, man, as much as I want to go with the underdog, as happy as I'll be for Gaethje, by the way, if he does pull this off. Ultimately, not just the Firmino fight, even back to his college wrestling, he kind of tripods and will give that tripod position. Eric just beautifully did a job of breaking down. And even if Khabib's able to get him there, he's going to be keeping him heavy on his hands, getting him tired. So I'll go with Khabib to survive 2 rounds of hell in order to get a 4th round submission. But I would not be surprised to see another lightweight king fall in Abu Dhabi. That seems to be where the lightweight kings seem to fall. So we'll see if it happens.
Eric, out of all the lightweights on the roster, do you think Gaethje presents the biggest challenge to the puzzle that is Khabib Nurmagomedov?
I do, and I think the Gaethje that we've seen as of late and his transformation under Coach Trevor Whitman, I think he can beat anybody on the planet. And what he was able to do against Cowboy, especially slipping in and out of punches, not getting hit, counter punching, and then he did that even more better against a guy like Tony. And the guy that essentially was supposed to dismantle him in Tony Ferguson, and we saw quite the opposite. So to be honest with you, nothing's going to surprise me with Justin if he comes out and wins this title. I'm with Dan. Like, I think the safest bet, if you're going to have to pick, you're going to obviously lean towards Khabib and probably grinding out a decision or finding a late finish. But I think Justin's a very live dog in this position. And, to be quite honest with you, I'm going to be pulling for Justin.
Yeah, look, guys, as all our fans listening at home knows, there's a difference between a pick and a bet. And I mean, when you're talking about plus 275 odds on a guy on the caliber of Justin Gaethje, I mean, let's be 100% honest here. This is a dog or pass situation. So it's either bet Justin Gaethje or pass. Now, as a pure pick, dude, it's hard for me to go against the great Khabib Nurmagomedov, and it's just because we haven't seen it yet. That doesn't mean it's not going to happen Saturday night. I mean, it's just like what I was talking about with the long-reigning champions. I haven't seen Anderson Silva lose in the UFC. I mean, I saw him lose back in Japan, which, I mean, I didn't put any stock into that flying scissor heel hook or any of those early losses or anything like that. And Hendon Barao lost his pro debut by split. They went on a 32-fight run. Ronda Rousey looked untouchable. So it always happens when you least expect it. Even these last few John Jones fights, I by default think John Jones is going to dominate everyone, and the fights have been getting more and more competitive. So it's not going to surprise me at all if an athlete and a competitor on the caliber of Justin Gaethje gets this done. But until I see someone kill the king, I can't pick against him. So pure pick is Khabib Nurmagomedov in this spot. Now, gentlemen, I know one of us might reference the stat that says he's got 50% takedown defense, but I think that's an extremely misleading stat, gentlemen, because you might see a fight between him and Dave Branch, and yeah, he got taken down, but what I favor more than the takedowns is that he makes his opponents work for every single second that they try to take him down. So you might get a takedown off on him, but he's going to get back up, and honestly, that behooves him more than it benefits you, because you're going to be the one tired. You're going to have to start from point A once again, try to take him down again, and that gas tank's slowly going to start to dwindle down. So I think taking a guy like Cannonier down is not the best idea in the world. But that being said, Robert Whittaker, he's got kind of that karate style. Fights with his hands down, which I'm really worried about, Dan Tom, because you don't want to fight a guy like Jared Cannonier with your hands down. But if a knockout doesn't happen, I'm curious if Whittaker can possibly outpoint the very hard-hitting Jared Cannonier, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, he told our guy James Lynch that he's aiming for a second round finish, which I love attitude-wise from the Reaper. However, both stylistically and what we saw in his last fight, I don't know if we're going to see that, right? But then again, was that just a mix of shaking off the dust, getting your confidence back, and giving credit where credit's due? Darren Till being a very skilled fighter, a counter fighter. And as we've seen, those precision strikers have been Robert Whittaker's hardest fights. I know we always talk about the 10 rounds with Yoel, and maybe you want to argue one of those scorecards. I'm not going to stop you from doing that, gentlemen, or any of our listeners out there. However, I will say, whether it's controversial or not, when Robert Whittaker faces athletic guys, there's a W next to his name usually afterwards. It's been the precision strikers like Stephen Thompson or workhorses like Court McGee. Say what you will. I'm not going to sit here and take credit from a guy like Court McGee, but say what you will. That was a close fight, and again, a completely different style match than Jared Cannonier. Now, can Cannonier catch him with his hands down, kind of like you alluded to, Dan? Yes. Should we be surprised if that happens? No, we absolutely shouldn't be surprised. Vegas won't be surprised because I don't know if you guys agree, but they opened Cannonier the favorite, I believe, in the spot. Forgive me, I don't have a number. I do agree with you, Dan. I'm dishing out here, but I do agree with you. It's a deceptive point about the wrestling. We saw Whittaker use a bit more wrestling against Darren Till. That's traditionally been the culprit for Cannonier. So I could see people leaning that way, but Cannonier is real deceptive. He'll make you work. For me, it's going to be a possible outpointing, and I think the leg kicks are the thing to look at for me, which I haven't really seen talked about. Fun stat as I push this on back to you guys, but everybody minus Jack Hermanson, who went 13 out of 16 for leg kicks, which still puts him right in that 90 percentile range. Everyone at every weight class has either landed every leg kick they have thrown at Cannonier or literally only missed one. Now, granted, some of those maybe might be at 4, some might be at 3, some might be up at 27 or at 16. So it's all over the place. The point is, you throw, you hit. You know, we can say we want about Anderson Silva's suspect age and suspect legs in the first place getting that. I'm not going to take away anything from Cannonier offensively, but defensively, outside of the one check kick against Hermanson, which hopefully for his sake is a trend, he's able to get hit there. And what have we seen from Whittaker? Since he got his leg injured from Yoel in that first fight, he's like trying to pay everybody back for it. He's literally trying to ruin everybody's knee. He's been in there since Yoel won. So I think that's going to be the thing to watch out for in this fight.
You know, it's funny that you bring up the leg kicks from the Whittaker side, because I was actually going to bring up the leg kicks from the Cannonier side, because we could sit here and talk about his hands. Look, he puts a lot of people down, but I think one of the most underrated weapons that Cannonier has are his leg kicks, and he actually comes from a camp at the MMA lab where that's one of the things that they're most known for. They also love that calf kick game, and I was just thinking to myself, if you want to slow down the movement of a guy like Robert Whittaker, who, you know, has that karate style, fights with his hands down, I mean, I think about going to leg kicks against a karate guy. What do you think, Coach?
Yeah, that was actually one of our game plans when Brad Tavares fought him, was actually chop that leg, and unfortunately we didn't get out of the first round with the guy. But you know, that was definitely it. You want to take away a lot of movement, and you want to take away a lot of that in and out action. You want to chop that leg up, and you're absolutely right. You know, those guys at MMA Lab and Coach John Crouch have done a phenomenal job. They've almost were the ones that, if from my recollection, that kind of put it on the map with the calf kick and Benson Henderson and those guys. So yeah, I think anytime you can get some free points and chopping that leg, it's very important. And for me and my guys, we always want to make sure that we're attacking that calf and attacking that lead leg at any point during the fight, and understanding that, hey, in a 3-round fight, if you can start taking away that movement and chopping away at that leg and the body, you're gonna weather the storm hopefully later on in the fight. So yeah, I think it's very important.
So Dan, Tom, you referenced the Yoel Romero fight, and I really don't care to argue who won that fight, because that to me is not important. What is important, however, is the damage sustained in a fight like that. Then 2 fights like that, 10 straight rounds with Yoel Romero. It's like getting into a car accident and expecting to come out the same. You know what I mean? So what I'm wondering is, because look, I watched those 2 fights and I was like, man, you know, not to speak in such absolute terms, but I was thinking like, neither guy is going to come back the same after this. And you've seen Yoel Romero hasn't won a single fight since. And Robert Whittaker, although, you know, next fight he did get knocked out by Israel, but the next fight against Till, he won the fight. Did kind of take some damage in that first round, did get dropped with the elbow. So I'm questioning, is the durability where it once was for Robert Whittaker? And the reason I'm bringing that up, Dan, Tom, is because when you fight with your hands down, that chin better be on point.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not going to be surprised if Cannonier wins or knocks him out. Let me just, again, reiterate that here. It's a very much on the table. However, if it does happen, let's just say, I'm still not going to really play into that narrative. I feel like at this point, it's a bit overplayed. Again, and to the point where if Cannonier gets the knockout, then now we're not only are we, you know, arguably discrediting Whittaker with this narrative, but now we're discrediting the positive that Cannonier hypothetically could be putting in this weekend, right? And the reason why I say that is because against Darren Till, even though from a scoring perspective, I felt like it was a little too subjective. I know he was able to cut him with one of the elbows, but that's more of a cut. If you wanted to give Till that round, I don't care. But for me, that's more of a superficial thing. I didn't see him being rocked, stumbled, much less knocked down. And I feel like you need to have those kind of markers, whether you're judging it from an official standpoint or a non-official standpoint. Otherwise, you are way too much in subjective territory land where we're just, you know, oh, that fighter was rocked, you know, and we always hate it when commentary does it, right? So let's try not to do that ourselves. So in that spirit, I liked that I saw that he took shots from Darren Till, even though I didn't weigh him that heavily. They were hard shots. You could hear him connect. I like that Whittaker didn't, you know, wasn't rocked. He stayed on the clock. He stayed very sharp. And on the flip side, we've seen Izzy stop unstoppable guys like Paulo Costa recently with these same shots. So I don't think it's that fair. Again, can Robert Whittaker get knocked out this Saturday? Absolutely, guys. Congrats on you and congrats on Cannonier or anybody that's on that side, right? It's definitely a possibility, but I don't think the Yoel fights at this point have a lot of play, if that makes sense.
It does, but hold on. You said you didn't see him get rocked against Till, but he got dropped in that first round with an elbow. I know you remember that, right?
Actually, he did get dropped in the first round. My bad. Yeah, you're right. But even that, he was still up. And in rounds 4 and rounds 5, there were quality shots where people were arguing like, "Oh, those shots were worth more than the body of work Whittaker did in the round." And although I didn't agree with that, I still felt like he landed harder shots. That especially if you've gotten rocked early in the fight, those things should definitely at least be rocking you. If not, maybe, getting you on ice skates, so to speak. And I really didn't see that. Even with the knockdown, it was quick. It was a clean shot. But the fact that he got right back up and kept fighting for 4 rounds and wasn't getting, almost like, when they get knocked, and rocked once, it's easy to tap that button within the fight again. And I didn't see that. So for me, it's like, I would argue that's a better result if you're looking at Robert Whittaker's durability than if Whittaker just went in and outpointed Darren Till and he didn't get knocked down. Then I would say that narrative is still alive that you mentioned, Dan. But the fact that he took some good shots, came back and won, I don't know, that it's a different math for me, but I could be wrong.
Well, I think both of those factors are going to match up really well for each guy. But for me as a coach, like I want to look at duration in between time of damage for Robert Whittaker and him taking the time off and resting his brain health. I think things like that are very important. So if you've been through a good 5-round war with a guy like Darren Till, and how did he come out of that fight? And here's a guy that you talked about earlier with the 2 wars against Yoel Romero. He needed some time off to rest and take care of his brain health and take care of his body. I think that's very overlooked in this sport. And I think guys were rushing into fights faster than they need to be, and really not taking the time and resting. So, I think for me, if Robert came out of that Darren Till fight feeling good and resting up, and how hard were the sparring rounds and all those things that went on during camp. And those are all very important things. I think they do add up. But again, like in this sport, 4-ounce gloves and a guy like Jared Cannonier, man, when he connects, I don't care who it is, he's going to put somebody's lights out. So all in all, it's just a matter of where he's at and if he's going to be there and if he's there to be hit.
Just out of curiosity, Eric, because this is one thing that I'm not, I'll just admittedly say I'm not too educated on, is like, the brain health and stuff like that. Like, can the chin truly recover? I mean, how much time off do you need? Like when you get dropped in a fight, like tell me a little bit about that stuff.
Well, I mean, there's still really no method to the madness. And I think there's a lot of it we're still trying to figure out, but pretty systematically for us, if you get dropped in practice, we're mandatory giving you 2 weeks off. If you've been knocked out in a fight, we don't want you back in the gym for probably a month or 2, and that's just something I think for me, being at Xtreme Couture since day one, I've seen the gym wars and I've seen what they've done to people and the fighters firsthand. So with that knowledge and knowing that, I think that I can use that to my best advantage and take care of the fighters that we have to us now on the history that we've seen in the past. So, we kind of have our own standard of things and maybe other gyms feel differently. And obviously we lean heavily on the UFC PI and their thoughts on the concussions and CTE and things of that sort. But, like I said, man, it's only can be recommended by us. We can't force them. But if a guy gets dropped, man, I'll just tell him like, hey, you need to be out of the gym for at least 2 weeks to a month.
It's very respectable. So prediction time. Dan, Tom, you going with the former champion Robert Whittaker to make it 2 in a row? Or do you think Jared Cannonier punches his way to a title shot versus Izzy?
Listen, I'm not going to be surprised at all if Cannonier knocks him out. I think the answer to the durability question, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. I think Eric did a fantastic job of bringing up that middle, not just for this matchup, but something like he said for all fighters to keep in mind. That definitely makes me even less confident in the pick that I honestly wasn't that confident in the first place. So great point there, Eric. That's definitely something that I think everybody should be considering no matter what side. As far as my side goes, I'm still going to go with Robert Whittaker. I do think the durability, again, stands a great point as far as the 5-round turnaround. But overall, this guy's only 29, folks. He's still in his 20s, whereas Cannonier's, we forget he's almost 37. He came into this game late, granted, but he's not beyond being hurt. And I don't like doing that after the fact, math on who they faced and when. But if you break down those matches on where those guys were in their career trajectories, even a guy like Hermansson, who's not as old as some might think, a guy I personally like and am high on, but even Hermansson himself, plus those who analyze him, will tell you those athletic fighters are guys he kind of self-destructs against. And that's just a fact. It shows. Whereas, Whittaker, again, I'm not comfortable with the way he's won those fights, but he has won the fights against the athletic guys. And I think he outpoints him. I don't think he finishes him like he wants to. I think he outpoints him if he can avoid getting knocked out.
We talked about point fighters. Well, Volkov's got a very good point fighting style. He keeps this on the outside. He's got a good path to victory. I guess the question is, Dan Tom, you know what happens when Walt Harris closes that distance. He throws some bungalows. You think he can do that here against the very tough Russian?
Man, I don't know if I want to, bet my house on it because it's a heavyweight fight, but I did end up picking the underdog here, which is Walt Harris. I think that he's got the speed, athleticism, and power. He's not going to be standing around to get hit like a Derek Lewis, who, granted, is one of the few people to knock out Volkov, who is very hard to stop because of his tall frame. But as Walt Harris explained to our own James Lynch, which, by the way, a fantastic looking interview. Shout out to everyone on production on Line Movement. I get distracted with the quality that this channel's putting out. But once I listen to the words of Walt, just realizing from his amateurs, not just from his athletic background of basketball, really being surrounded by 6'5+ athletes his whole life, his whole competitive life, but from boxing, being paired up with boxing, he's a Golden Gloves winner. He has accolades and experience there. He's always had to face tall guys there. Even on the top of ranks, he's actually float out to be trained by Tyson Fury, be a sparring partner for him, as well as Deontay Wilder, who they have hometown roots. And the one thing that both, according to Walt, that those top-level boxers said, as far as why he was so valuable, kind of reaffirms something that I've always said, why you can never count on a guy like Walt Harris at heavyweight, is because heavyweight does have athletes. Like Walt Harris, that is not as uncommon, but it does not have a lot of southpaws. And I think Eric can attest to that with all the heavyweights that have been coming through Xtreme Couture's gyms. You don't find a lot that can go southpaw. I think Tim Johnson is a southpaw, so I'm sure he's a very useful partner for a lot of guys. I'm sure it's no surprise you see him being utilized for a lot of camps when he can. Probably not a surprise because you don't have a lot of southpaws. So with that being said, I believe only one southpaw went through Volkov's career. And I'm familiar with a lot of the Russian people in the regional scene, by the way, too. I think I only came up with one southpaw. I think it was a lower level southpaw where striking really wasn't a factor, though he did get the win right. So I don't know if he's going to be able to take on this level of southpaw. Volkov should be favored. If it goes to decision, it's probably like 8.5 to 1. It's going to go to Volkov if the fight made it that long. But I do think Walt Harris's speed and southpaw striking will get the jump on him. And hopefully we'll all feel good about it for everything that dude's been through.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Just as a fan to see Walt Harris win would be something. But man, this is a tall order, Eric. I mean, literally a tall order. The guy's 6'7". He's got the 80-inch reach. He fights on the outside. He doesn't take any unnecessary risks. So it's going to really be up to Walt to close that distance, go upstairs. And I will say this, Volkov does have a little bit of that tall man's defense. Walt Harris hits like a truck. What do you think, man?
Well, Dan, man, I'm always so proud of you with your analysis because you're always spot on with a lot of that stuff. And, I've trained with Walt quite a bit. Walt's been in the gym a number of times. I've held pads for Walt. He is a very, very tricky southpaw. And what I mean by that is, when you have open stance guys, you want to be able to start setting traps. And how do you set traps is a lot of times with that slipping of the head, or which way the head slips from a southpaw orthodox stance. And he's able to do things athletically that a lot of heavyweights can't do. I mean, I had Walt hitting the same side head kicks, and you don't see that a whole lot at the heavyweight division. Now, is that something he's going to utilize against Volkov? I don't know, but to Dan's testament is the guy is a super good athlete. For me, when I watch this fight and I see this fight, I want to see Walt be patient. Take your time. We saw him jump a little bit ahead on the Alistair Overeem fight and it ended up biting him in the ass. So in this fight in particular, kind of settle your feet, take your time. Not everything has to be fight-ending punches. Connect, prod, level change, feint, work your way in the inside and find your openings, but by using the cage to trap him, right? So that for me, when I have open stance fighters, I always want to try to find traps on the cage, not chasing, cutting off and trapping. And by doing so, I think you'll be able to find Volkov. Volkov doesn't really have a problem allowing you to push him back to the cage. We saw that in the Blades fight. I cornered against Volkov with Roy Nelson, and we were able to move him to the cage at will. Mm-hmm. But those things are very important too. Is Volkov doesn't use his range and his length like I would like to see him use. I would get to the rear teeps. I would get to my jab. I would really fight for center and be able to utilize my length. And I don't see him using that as well. I'm with Dan. I think Walt finds the traps. Is able to kind of cut that cage off correctly. A lot of high-low movement, I think, is going to be very important. Use that corral, which is we call the 1-3, the 1-3 off the southpaw side corral, and line up that straight shot for that left cross. I think Walt's going to find him.
Man, I hate to be the dick that's picking against Walt Harris, and I hope I'm dead wrong, man. I hope, just as a fan, nothing would make me happier than to see Walt Harris come out here, get his arm raised, have a nice speech, do the whole bit. So I'm rooting for Walt Harris. It's just kind of hard for me to pick him here as an analyst or as a bettor, or whatever you want to call it. Because, man, I think back to that Arlovsky fight. I know this is a completely different matchup. I know that, Volkov's got a lot of height on Arlovsky. He's just a completely different fighter. But I'm going to be honest with you guys. I was expecting a little bit more from Walt in that fight. I thought that in being too patient, that actually let Arlovsky arguably get off on some volume there. And that's what I'm worried about here. With Alexander Volkov. I'm worried that if he's too patient, that's going to let Volkov outpoint him. But I do think that if he turns up and decides to say fuck it and go for it, you saw what Derek Lewis did. I mean, look, Walt Harris can knock out anybody. So I'm rooting for him. I hope he knocks out Volkov, but my gut is telling me probably a Volkov decision. I hope I'm dead wrong. I'd love to see Walt Harris have that moment. Now, gentlemen, moving down to the light heavyweight division, we got the rematch between Magomed Ankalaev and Iwan Cutelaba. They've been supposed to fight on a million different occasions, but it's allegedly going down this Saturday night. You guys saw the first fight, and a lot of people like to place the blame on the referee, and even though it wasn't the best ref call in the world, I placed most of the blame on Iwan Cutelaba. Like, why are you out there playing dumb, against this guy? Like, I just thought that was actually a knock on his fight IQ, Dan Tom. And I definitely think that it's KO or bust for Cutelaba in this spot. I think that Ankalaev is better everywhere. It's just that, Cutelaba hits very hard. He's knocked out many people in the UFC. He's experienced. And these are 4-ounce gloves we're talking about. So that's something you got to look out for. But I do think if this fight gets extended, historically speaking, Cutelaba does not win fights that go past the first round. So naturally, I got to favor Ankalaev here, Dan Tom.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm still waiting for this 12 years of Greco experience that Cutelaba keeps putting in his profile to show up, man. Like, where's that at? Like, dude, this guy looks like he could be mean if he does a Randy Couture collar tie. Like, if you get him an Xtreme Couture, Eric, you got to maybe try to set him up with that, because this guy goes out and he does the same thing, kind of to Dan's point, to Daniel's point, as far as, he's almost like a do or die type of fighter when when the fight starts to not go his way. I figured the odds makers would copy and paste on this, Dan. But I don't know if you've been paying attention. I feel like the odds makers keep opening Ankalaev as a higher favorite slightly every time this match gets rebooked. I could have swore he was opening at -270 around one of the second or third times it's got booked. Now he's opened at -340, which is high enough for some money to actually come in on Cutelaba. But I don't agree with it. I'm going to go with Dagestani Stipe Miocic. Ankalaev, he looks like Stipe. He's a little bit more of a pointy nose. He's got the Dagestani beard. He's right there. He's got the speed. Scary ground and pound power, and comes from a scary team. I'll just leave it at that. So I'll go with Ankalaev.
Eric, do you think the reason that Cutelaba doesn't really show off that Greco-Roman background, and do you think he might have an internal fear of kind of getting tired? Because, even without using those takedowns, he seems to fatigue a lot in fights. Do you think that would just use too much energy?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a lot of it has to do with his style and the way he likes to fight. I mean, he's a balls to the wall, and he's very fan favorite and entertaining, but it's not the best for your fight IQ and your longevity of your career in the UFC by no means at all. And, so I definitely think that this fight is, Magomed's been at the gym. He's been training with us. He's been crushing people. And then this fight was canceled earlier in the year. Again, it got moved again. So, I think he's just going to go in the first, just like the first fight went. The head kicks were a big thing, big factor. I've seen him in the gym kicking guys the same way. I think he comes out and starts rifling those things right back at the guy, I think it goes the same as the first.
Well, that's awesome. I actually didn't know that he was training with you guys. So you can confirm right here, right now on the Line Movement MMA betting show that Ankalaev never lost his focus. He's been in the gym this whole time, and he's ready to go Saturday night. Oh,
absolutely. Yeah, he's an animal.
Well, that's great to hear. You guys heard it here first at Line Movement. Make sure you follow us at line_movement. Give this video a like, a subscribe. We truly appreciate it. Now, Dan Tom, I think we all are on Ankalaev in this spot. Do you see it being another first-round finish, or do you think this fight gets extended? What's the official prediction?
If it gets out of the first round, it's going to be finished early in the second by ground and pound stoppage. That's my call.
Now, Eric, do you see anyone shooting for a takedown in this one?
No, I think this one's gonna just right where it left off, and hopefully that these guys get this fight going, and there's no controversy like in the last one.
I agree. I'm gonna go with Ankalaev, and most likely a stoppage. I think that every single time, like I said, that we've seen Cutelaba out the first round. I mean, maybe minus the Jonathan Wilson fight, but I think we're talking about a different caliber fighter here. Shit's gotten sketchy. Let's just call it how it is. So I'm gonna go with Ankalaev via second round TKO as well. Now, gentlemen, last but not least, we saved the best for last, and this is a true prospect showdown between Kenney and Nathaniel Wood. And I think this is one of those fights where the winner is going to go right into the top 15. No questions asked. I mean, this is like a top 20 fight. Winner's getting a top 15 opponent next. You got the USA prospect, Kenney, taking on Britain's top prospect, Nathaniel Wood. I mean, his nickname is the Prospect Dan Tom. This is such an incredible fight. Where do you start? I got to hear your analysis first, my man. I mean, where do you even start with a matchup like this? I guess one edge I would give Kenney is in the durability department. I mean, not just in the UFC, but even outside the UFC, we have seen Nathaniel Wood not just rock, but we've seen him stop before more than once. So I would have to give the edge to Kenney there. And naturally, I'd want to give the wrestling edge to the American as well. But I gotta say this, and no disrespect, but for a Brit, this guy can grapple. So don't be confused just because he's from the UK. This guy can grapple. He can wrestle. He's a well-rounded mixed martial artist. So I wouldn't underestimate him in any area. But where do you kind of think the advantages lie for the American Kenney?
I think he kind of said it there that Nathaniel Wood, the tricky thing about him is that he's actually a really good grappler. You know, he offers some really nice looks on the feet. He's trained by a guy, Brad Pickett, who knows how to hold himself on the feet. But if you look at it, kind of similar to Brad Pickett, his mentor, underrated ground game. Now, unfortunately, and I don't want to say this because it's not terrible. He's still young, plenty of room to improve. I dare say Pickett had a better offensive wrestling game, but this kid has a better all-around MMA grappling and submission game, Nathaniel Wood does, than a Brad Pickett. Unfortunately, I don't think it's better than a Kenney. More specifically, the wrestling to get there. You could criticize Kenney for giving away takedowns in his past in certain MMA matches, but this guy does have Greco experience that I can believe, as well as judo credentials, a judo black belt, and a Brazilian jiu-jitsu purple belt, as his MMA submissions and grappling are starting to improve. I don't know if that's where he wins this fight, guys, because as Casey showed in his last fight, his striking is coming along from the southpaw stance. He had that southpaw double attack. He was like a little 135 crow cop, a little spunky little crow cop out there. I'm surprised that, he is healthy, but from the interview you did with James Lynch, it sounds like he's ready to go with his shortened camp and the quick turnaround. There's dangerous intangibles, but I feel like Kenney is young, has that kind of FU attitude enough, and I mean that in a positive. I think that, he's a performer on game day, so I'm not surprised to see him favored, and I'm not surprised to see money come in on him, but the defining factor maybe is the southpaw stance, Dan, considering Nathaniel Wood's not fought many southpaws, minus John Dotson, who caught him, and Kenney cited that fight in particular when talking to our colleague James, saying he likes the strikes because he's got some similar strikes of his own. So he sees those openings there. I don't doubt him. Give me Kenney.
Eric, I think the thing I'm most surprised about is that, Kenney's not sitting on his couch with a big ice pack on his foot right now from kicking Haile Alatang, 100 times in that fight, because even though the official scores was, 30-25, 30-24, I mean, when you whoop someone like that, that hurts you too. I mean, you're kicking a real human being, Eric.
Yeah. I mean, like we're talking about another MMA lab product. This kid has been putting on a show as of late, and Dan's absolutely right. I mean, in that fight, I remember numerous times screaming to myself like, oh man, that same side of head kick's right there for the taking. And I think that's some of those things that he's going to implement in this fight. He's super slick off that southpaw stance. Like to see him use a little bit more of the body work as well, just to negate any of those shots that Dan's talking about from Nathaniel Wood. And when you start showing the level change with your striking, you start also negating the level change for a guy who wants to offensive wrestle. You want to aim that cross to the chest. So it's going to be very important for him to find that. And I think sliding off in and out of your stances are going to be very good for Kenney. So I'm looking forward to see this kid perform again.
From your experience, coach, I mean, when you have a fighter that takes on, a fight in such back-to-back short notice, and, he just went 3 rounds. And I mean, even though he didn't take any damage in terms of, highly Alatang didn't hurt him. I know that, getting off on all those kicks had to have hurt Casey a little bit. He's probably had to recover a bit. Do you think that we can expect in 100% Casey Kenney 2 weight cuts back-to-back, or is this all speculative talk?
Well, I mean, I can only draw really on my own experience, and we kind of dealt with that with Dan Ige. We went with Mirsad Bektik, and we fought Edson Barboza, and we went right back and fought Calvin Kattar. And it's really just about the fighter and their own healing and how they feel getting back into all those camps. So if you feel great and you feel like you're ready to go, this is the time to fight, man. This is the opportunity these guys have. It's going to be like none other that we've ever seen, and that's why I see so many guys fighting back to back to back and doing the things they can, because if they come out healthy, they might as well take advantage of this time while they have it.
Now, Dan, Tom, what do you think would be, Kenny's, not Kenney, excuse me, what do you think would be Nathaniel Wood's path to victory here? Because you did mention that Kenney has been taken down before, but not to counter that point, but just to kind of, give you something else to work with. I feel like whenever people take him down, he always pops right back up. He makes you work for that takedown. So I'm not convinced that Wood just comes out here, takes him down, and that Kenney can't get back up. I think, if anything, Kenny's going to make him work for every single shot, every single minute of this fight.
See, that's the thing. He's going to have to show something on the feet as far as outpointing him. And when we have seen him against the southpaw, he was stopped. He's going to have that in his head. That was a high-level one from a hard hitter and John Dotson on a very big stage. I will kind of add, though, to close something of note. This fight is at a catch weight at 140 pounds. Now, we know Kenney, who is now, I would argue, is now a decent-sized bantamweight, but he did used to fight at flyweight, so they are giving him a little break. Like a lot of these, we saw Martinez and Almeida booked at a higher weight. They're doing that a lot for these bantamweights. Brian Boom Kelleher is another one. So they're giving Kenney and Wood that treatment here as far as that turnaround, which Kenney likes. He says it's not going to be a hard weight cut. He said his leg was fine to James for whatever that's worth as far as that turnaround. And whether we're talking about his UFC debut or as an amateur, this isn't the first time where he's fought 2 fights in 1 month. In fact, whether it was the amateur or the one from LFA to his UFC debut, I believe he got wins in both of those, if I'm not correct. Yeah, he did. So, let's see if he can make it a turkey. Third time's the charm. But for Nathaniel Wood to win, I don't even want to say he's got to catch him for a club and sub, which is kind of like the easy out answer to say in MMA, when you consider that Casey Kenney hasn't been stopped or submitted. So he's going to have to fight super smart and really try to outpoint Kenney, which is a tall ask.
Yeah, look, I think Kenney is the more durable guy here. I guess just from a betting perspective, what I'm most worried about is underestimating a guy like Nathaniel Wood, because, I mean, he's a very respectable opponent. And not only that, but usually when I see fights like this between 2 prospects trying to enter the top 15, it's usually a pick'em. It's almost 2-1 for Casey Kenney. Now, while I agree and I personally line it there, I'm just curious if I'm kind of underestimating Nathaniel Wood at all, or if we are indeed accurate that Casey Kenney should be a 2-1 favorite here, Eric.
Yeah, I think the odds are spot on. I think the hard part for sports betting and the way the odds are set is you're always going to be remembered by the last fight and kind of that last impression that you might have had. And of course, Casey Kenney and the show that he put on, I think is going to really kind of give him that 2-1 feeling. But the odds might be a little bit closer than what we were assuming. And look, when I look back and break down Casey, Merab was the one fight that he had trouble with, and that guy's a beast when it comes to the wrestling game. What he did is to me kind of not necessarily a pass, but I remember Casey Kenney getting up and creating scrambles and doing a lot of good things in that fight, although taking the loss in that fight. So I don't see Nathaniel Wood doing the same thing that Merab did to him at all, and I think that this fight's going to stay on the feet, and I think you're going to see Casey pick him apart.
Well, I think the 3 of us are going with the American Casey Kenney in this spot. So, gentlemen, that about wraps it up. We truly want to thank all our listeners, fans, and supporters for checking out this edition of the Line Movement MMA Betting Show. Make sure y'all give us a like and a subscribe. We're also on Apple Podcasts, on iTunes, so make sure y'all hook up that 5-star review. We truly appreciate it. You can follow me at Best Fight Picks. You can follow my co-host Dan Tom at Dan Tom MMA. Eric Nicksick, we truly appreciate you joining us today on the Line Movement MMA Betting Show. It's been absolutely a blast. Let the fans know where they can follow you and anything else you want to tell them.
Yeah, it's easy. Eric _XCMMA on Instagram. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, and best of luck to you and all your future endeavors. And thank you again to the fans and to everybody behind the scenes, our producer Jordan, to Dan, Joe, Nick, Brian, everybody. Thank you guys so much. We truly, truly appreciate it. We'll be back next week for yet another fight night. Again, Dan, Tom, thank you for joining me. Eric Nicksick, thank you as well. Everybody stay safe, enjoy the fights, and we will speak soon.
What's up, everybody? If you like the show you just saw, be sure to give the video a like, subscribe to our channel, and follow all of our content at linemovement.com.